Today I'm going to show you how to make a print using materials you have lying around in the house if you're not in the art room. You need tracing paper, you need your sketchbook with the drawing you're going to do, and you need styrofoam, which can be from meat trays that you get at the store of vegetables. You'll need acrylic ink or some kind of printing ink. I like to use a plastic piece of plexiglass for spreading out my paint, and this tool called a brayer is very useful. So the first thing you do is you do your drawing. In this case I've done a fish. And you lay your tracing paper on top and make sure that your drawing has lots of textures and details that'll make it more interesting for printing. I'm using a high B pencil. In this case it's a 7B because that will put a lot of graphite down, a lot of pigment, so that when I go to transfer it. So I'm going to trace the fish, and I won't show you all of it. I'm going to jump ahead to the next step. So once I've actually traced my fish, and here's one that's traced, I'm going to actually put it this side down onto my piece of styrofoam. Make sure it fits, and I always try to maximize or minimize my waste, so bring it right to the edge and make sure I can fit it on. Now, the reason I've reversed it from the original drawing is so that now the pencil is on this side, so that when I draw over it, it will transfer some of the pigment. Sometimes it's hard to do this again with a blunt pencil. In that case, you can do this with a ballpoint pen, and you can always use paper clips to hold your work in place. So you can go over your drawing with a ballpoint pen, and that will transfer your image. You're pressing, so it's transferring both the graphite and the image is making indentations into the styrofoam. This one may not be as clear because I've already used it once, but you can see it there, and I can easily go over that with my pen again to make sure it's deep. Now, the reason you want it nice and deep is so it will make a better print. So if I jump to the next step, I've now transferred my drawing, you can see it's reversed, onto the styrofoam, and it's quite deep, it digs in. That way when I put ink on it, the ink will sit on top. It won't go into these little areas I press down, and those areas will be the color of the paper. So in this case I'm going to use black ink and white paper, so the fish will be black and all the things I drew will be white. I also cut it away because I actually want to print several fish, and try to cut relatively neatly because of course the black ink is going to sit on top here, and so all this edge around my fish will also print. So I'll move this out of the way, and we're going to put some ink. You can't see because it's clear on clear, you can't see very well, but this is a tray, or plastic tray that I'm going to use for my acrylic based ink, and I'm going to take some out using a popsicle stick. Put it on here. I don't need too much because I'm not going to do a lot of prints right now. Also, you should wear a smock and roll up your sleeves. This is a dirty business. So I use my brayer for going back and forth on the plexiglass and evening it out. You really want to even it. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing to my fish. I'm going to put my ink on the fish and I'm going to make it even as I can, going over right to the edges. And I can change the direction, that's okay, but I just really want to make sure that I get the ink well covered onto the styrofoam. If it looks like I'm running out of ink and maybe I don't have enough ink, I can put more ink onto my brayer, and that will allow me to put more ink onto my brayer and then onto my styrofoam. I have a very small area to work with, so the camera is very close to the table. So now I'm going to turn this upside down and lay it on a paper. In this case I'm just going to put it right in the middle of the paper, and then I'm going to hold it very still and flip it over. I actually need to move it to a clean part. Normally you wouldn't work all in one area because now the dirt that's on the table is going to get on my print, but because my camera is so close to the table I have a very small area to work. I'm going to use my hands in a motion like this to rub the reverse side of the paper, making sure my styrofoam doesn't move. Normally we use a tool filled with bamboo fibers, it's called a baron, to do this, but If you don't have a barren, you can just use your fist. And you can lift the corner and check and see what it looks like. If it looks like you haven't gotten enough, you can press a little harder and really press, and you should be able to transfer that ink onto your drawing. It looks like I didn't put enough ink on my styrofoam, so I'm going to show you what this one looks like. If I do another one, I'll put more ink. So there you can see it's transferred, but clearly when I got to the head of the fish, my brayer didn't have enough ink on it, and this is it's a lot under printed. But that's a test print, that's okay. And normally when you do a test print, the very first one, you'll mark it AP1, Artist Proof 1. And it's always a good idea to number your prints. So it's 1 here because it's the first one I've done, but if I do 10 at the end, I'll put 1 out of 10. The next one I do will be 2. So let's maybe try one more where I put a little more ink on it and see how that goes. I just didn't put enough ink on it, I think. I may even need more ink on my tray. This is why normally I put newspaper down. I didn't have newspaper handy for this video, but I usually put newspaper down because that way I can keep moving things around and it will stay cleaner. And I will do this for this next print so that I don't get the ink all over everything because it really is messy. So I'm putting more ink on this time. Because that his face wasn't juicy enough. I didn't get enough ink transfer. So we're really going to apply it a bit thicker this time. Okay, move that out of the way. This time I'm going to put some newspaper down so that my area stays clean. And I'm going to lay this down, put my paper over it, lift it really, make sure it's in a good place, and do the same kind of rubbing that I did before. A circular motion, pressing hard with the side of my hand. Hopefully I'll get a better print this time. I can hold it steady and lift up the corner to see what it's looking. See, it's already looking better. I just didn't put enough ink the last time. So that's why we do test prints, so we figure out what's going to work well on with our particular printing block. So I think this one is a better print. There we go. And you can see why having all of the textures makes it more interesting. So that's styrofoam printing and the techniques to get you going.